Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and start the meeting. First item on the agenda tonight is consider approving the minutes from held on 9/11/2015.
I'd make a motion to accept the minutes of September 11th.
Second, all in favor? The next item on the agenda tonight is we're going to meet Ms. Rosie Vanatestein, our Executive Director from the Kennebec Valley Council of Government.
Rosie's here. I know she's
Evening, Rosie.
making some introductions around the area. Very pleased that she could work us up tonight.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled that you guys are having me here tonight, and thank you very much, and thank you for being members of KVCOG. And I will say that I'm not sure if it's the first time ever, but I think it's been a long time that we've had two representatives on our board of directors from the same town, and so thank you for your service for that as well, because Dana was a write-in candidate, and so Oakland now has two representatives on our board. So that's pretty exciting. So I just wanted to come around. I'm just making the rounds because I am new. I started in July, and just letting folks know what's going on, what KVCOG has to offer, and the direction that we're looking at going. And this might be repetitive for some of you that were at the annual meeting yesterday, and we did cover some of this as well, so I apologize for that. So some of the services that KVCOG offers for our member municipalities includes planning, and planning takes many forms. So we do land use planning, environmental planning, solid waste, transportation planning, and we also do some training and capacity building for municipalities. So if you have a planning board that might need some training, we also offer some of those training opportunities. We also are the TA for the region, and our region covers Somerset County, Kennebec County, and Western Waldo County. And we have 69 municipalities that fall within our region, and several unorganized territories that are also in our region. So we are the TA specialist for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And so we can help you with applications, technical assistance. We can even help you with the administration on the other end if you were successful in getting a community development block grant. So those are some of the services we offer. We also do some economic development work, and we are affiliated with the US EDA, which is the Economic Development Administration, and we also get funding from USDA, and they back infrastructure investment projects. One of the things we have to do for EDA is we have to do a 5-year comprehensive economic development strategy, which is called the CEDS, and it is a committee of lots of private folks, some of the municipal folks, and we create this 5-year strategy for our region. That strategy is reviewed annually, and we report on it annually to let them know what our progress is as well. We also offer business counseling and training services for businesses, and we partner with a lot of folks to pull that off. We have a small business development counselor, SBDC, there's so many acronyms, that is right in our office as well, and she helps folks, and we work with them to do business plans if they wanted to add a line, if they wanted to get into government contracting, if they want to get into import-exports. Those are all the kind of things that we can help to facilitate. We also have a revolving loan fund program for businesses, whereby if a startup business or a business that happens to go to a bank that can't get financing, we will come in and we will help to assist as long as it makes sense and the numbers work out. We do a lot of partnering with FAME. We do partnering with some of the other EDDs, the Economic Development Districts, and one of the exciting things that just we're in the final stages of finalizing is a memorandum of understanding with Eastern Maine Development Corp, and they have an SBA 7A program, which we have not been able to have in our region. It's very specific on how they get those funds. And so now we're going in with an MOU on them on one of our projects, and it's going to open up that whole arm of financing for our region as well, which we haven't had before. So that's really exciting news. We do take a look at the regional focus and perspective, and we are a convener, if you will, of regional collaboration. So if you and your neighbors wanted to have a conversation about joint services or anything like that, KVCOG can help to facilitate those conversations and work through some of that. So, as I said, I did start in July, so KVCOG is in a transition right now, and so part of that transition is going to actually include a strategic planning process that we're starting. We're putting together a committee right now, and one of the things that we're really going to take a look at is our due structure and how our due structure works. And we're looking to identify new areas to assist municipalities, and we're gonna be sending out a survey in a few weeks. We're just about done with it. It'll be coming to the town, to really get some feedback from you guys, to figure out what it is you guys need that we might be able to offer. Take a look at what we're offering. Should we keep it? You know, are enough people interested in it? What can we change? What can we do? So it might be adding additional services. For example, you know, I've met with a lot of the town managers, and Peter was really great to see me shortly after I came, and I've been going out and meeting with several of the towns. And you know, we've talked about code enforcement, we've talked about assessing, I get animal control a lot, GA I get quite a bit. So those are some of the things that people have been talking about and figuring out, you know, can you figure this out? Another one is volunteer fire departments, and could you do the administration for the volunteer fire departments and take care of all that paperwork that comes with that whole section. So those are some of the things we're going to take a look at and figure out what works and what makes sense. You know, we'll hopefully identify work on new and existing regional initiatives. Like I said, we are a regional organization, and we do look at that as well as the member municipalities. But the biggest thing is we're really trying to figure out how does KV-COG become more efficient and more effective, and you know, to get the biggest bang for our buck. And one of the things that I'm hoping to do in November is to have an economic development forum with all of the different agencies and all of the different groups that are providing services to municipalities. One of the things that I realized when I came to this region is there are a lot of people that do very similar things, and there's a lot of overlapping sometimes. And does that make sense? And how do we use our money wiser? And so hopefully we can have that conversation without it becoming threatening. I know a lot of the times it is competing, but I think in this day and age and with the financial resources, we really need to look at collaboration and how we do that. We are starting an outreach and marketing program. We are looking at all of our collateral materials. We're going to be updating our website to make it more user-friendly with lots of data on there for the municipalities to access. We're even having conversations about creating some webinar training, so that, because we understand that getting to a training session is really difficult, but if we can provide our members a training that they can do at their desk, that makes a lot of sense. It saves time, it saves money, it saves gas, all of that kind of stuff. So we're looking at doing that as well, because our goal is really to keep you guys all informed of what's happening and what our offerings and what our programs are and what's going on in the region. We're also looking to connect with the business community a little bit more than we have in the past, and hopefully we'll be able to create some sort of a business outreach as well, where we'll be able to kind of gauge. One of the things that's really difficult is when you know, you get notice that a business is closing its doors and you've lost 10 or 15 employees in your municipality. And that can be devastating in a small community and in a large community. But if we can do some sort of an outreach program and really educate these guys to know that if they come to us sooner, maybe there's something we can do to help them right the ship, if you will. The other thing I just wanted to inform you about is the Mobilize Maine initiative that we have. And what that is a little bit different. Typically when you talk about economic development, you're taking a look at what you're missing in your community, or you know, what is it that you need to have, and you try to figure out how do you fill that hole, and sometimes that doesn't work so well. You know, the day where we would land a huge manufacturer that's going to create 200 jobs, I don't think that's really going to be happening very often. It may here and there, and if you land one, you're lucky. And one of the things we're talking about is looking locally. And so the Mobilize Maine initiative, what it does is it looks at the assets that we already have in our region. And so this effort started, I believe, 2 years ago, possibly 2.5 years ago. And they mapped all of the assets within our region, and they mapped 130 unique, distinctive assets. And so now what we're doing is we've taken those 130 assets and we've boiled them down into 4 components. And we've created action teams around these 4 components to figure out how to grow the economy utilizing our assets. And so the 4 areas that we are focusing on is agriculture, education, the natural and built environment, and innovation and entrepreneurship. Those are the 4 things that we're really focusing on, and the action committees are just getting back to the table after having the summer off, and getting back to work at creating some goals and working on that. So that's one of the things that we're doing. So once we finalize all of the changes that are going to happen, what my plan is my plan is to come back out on the road, to come back to you guys and say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we've done. This is what we've changed. These are our new offerings. And we're going to really do a good rollout of that when we get to that point. So with that, I know you guys have a lot of business to take care of, so I just wanted to come and let you know that information, and I'll answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
I got a question.
Sure.
One of the challenges that Oakland's going to be facing in the future is revamping our comprehensive plan. What services do you offer, and how expensive would it be for Oakland to use your services?
Okay. Well, I would have to work with our planning department to come up with the exact figure for you to work from. Typically what we say is it's about an 18-month process to go from the beginning to the end. And there are a lot of different ways that it can happen. So if you have involved community members or an involved planning board, or if you have committees that will be involved in part of your comprehensive plan, that will reduce some of the costs. And so what I like, one of the things I'm working with our planning department on is really kind of tailoring our thing. Typically they would say, oh, it's $20,000 to do a comp plan. It's $20,000 to do a comp plan over a 2-year period, so it would be like $10,000 a year, and that's Katie Cog being all in and the town doing nothing. What we're looking at doing is really structuring that, and we're actually working, we had a conversation today, as a matter of fact, about how we discount our fee services for members, and we also credit, one of the things we've struggled with is how do we credit your dues toward that project. And so we're really coming up with a good formula for us to work with that, if you will. There are a lot of maps. The good thing with KV Cog is we have a GIS department, and so we can do all of the mapping. So if you guys needed street maps or shoreline zoning maps, or if you needed a recreational trail map, whatever it is, if you needed anything like that, we have that service as well. So what happens some of the time with towns that put out an RFP to do their comprehensive plan, and I don't know if that'll be the process here, Katie Cog always bids on all of the RFPs for the comprehensive plan. Our goal is to increase that, because one of the things that we're finding is if you get a smaller private firm that only has 1 or 2 people and they don't have any overhead, they can come in and they can bid a little bit lower. What they do then is they come to KV Cog and they get all of the information from us to help them put your comprehensive plan together. And then what we're finding is at the end of the comprehensive plan, you guys would be coming back to us for us to help do like the ordinance work and some of that stuff if you have some ordinances. So the good thing with KV Cog doing a plan in our region is we have a lot of the data that everybody comes to us for. We have the mapping that we can do for you. And like I said, we'll definitely work with you to try to keep the price down as best as we can. But I can check, do you know when is yours up, or?
Ours was up in 2012.
Oh, it was up, okay, so you're past, okay. So yeah, I can go back and I'll work with Chris and put some numbers together for you guys, and I'll send them to you, Peter. I can send that to you just to give you an idea.
Great.
I got another question.
Sure.
What grants are out there that Oakland would qualify for?
It really depends on what you need to have a project. So most of the grants are really project-based. So CDBG right now, what their focus is really job creation. So they're working with businesses to create some really good jobs. And so what happens with that is the business needs the money as a grant, but they have to get it through the town. So the town has to really be the applicant for a business to create the jobs in your community. That's kind of how it works. One of the other things we're having conversations about is actually grant writing services, because before in the past, my predecessor did not like to have KV Cog actually writing the grants for the municipalities. They would just let the municipality write the grant, and a lot of the times the smaller towns just don't have grant writers on staff. So it would be kind of become challenging. So I think one of the things we're looking at is how do we do that a little bit better, with the understanding that grants are very competitive. So even if you hired a grant writer for a couple $100 an hour to write your grant for you, the chances of you getting it, it's not great. You don't have high chances of always getting these grants because they are very competitive and a lot of people apply for them. So one of the understandings that it's important for the town to know is that if you're assisted on a grant and you don't get the grant, it's not, typically because of the grant writer, it's just because it's competitive. And I know that's happened, I guess, in the past, and that's one of the things we're looking at. The other thing we're looking at, Mark, around grants is to really come up with a comprehensive list that we can start sharing as a resource, and kind of identifying that, because there's foundation grants, there's, recreation grants, USDA grants, ag grants, there's lots of different grants out there. So if you have a specific project in mind and you know you want money for X, then that makes it a lot easier for us, because then we can go out and see what we can find that might fit. So that would be how I would answer that.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Just one quick question. Would you happen to know the businesses that are taking advantage of the revolving loan program that KB Cog has?
From Oakland?
From Oakland.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can get that for you. I can send that to Peter as well. And I'll let you know how many we have. That's one of the things we really want to do, is really reach out to those businesses in all of the towns to let them know. So if you guys hear of anybody that wants to start a business or wants to figure out how to expand their business or add a product line or whatever it is, have them give us a call and we'll figure out how we can help them. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Have a good evening.
Next item on the agenda is to consider approving liquor license for special amusement for the country club.
I don't think there's anything new or unusual about this, but it is a required renewal. We'll bring it before you for consideration.
Make a motion, we approve that?
Move second, all in favor?
Jan, do you have an original
Yeah,
to circulate?
I have
for
two
signature?
pictures signed, one for the special amusement and one for the liquor license that goes to the state.
Go on. Next one, authorize the easement across a private property with Heath Street to accommodate the drainage for the school parking lot.
Yeah, the RSU is looking to create some additional parking between the Tapley building and the Atlee School. And there's some drainage that will result from that project that Boyd Snowden and Jeff Hall have been working with the school to try and solve that problem. And a line that currently serves poorly can be replaced by one that serves better on the same property owner's lot, that would help the property owner with some water issues with his gravel driveway. So it is advised that because it crosses the town street and water currently drains into an old sewer line under Heath Street for that part of town, it works, it doesn't work real well, and it's not advisable to put additional water into that recycled sewer pipe. And you may understand that system better than I do if you've been here long enough to remember this project. This idea that has been developed would collect the runoff from the parking lot in that part of the street and direct it into the bog to the rear of the homes on the other side of the street. But it is recommended that because it's a town street, a town collection system, we would route some of our, or at least one of our catch basins on that street into this same line, that the easement be placed in the town of Oakland's name, even though the expenditures that would result from the project would fall to the RSU. But because it is an easement that we would pursue in the name of the town, I wanted to make sure that I call this to your attention and make sure that you're agreeable to our doing such a thing before someone raised a question and you didn't know or had determined that it was all right for us to proceed in that manner. I've got pictures. I don't know if you're interested in the detail, but as I say, it would eliminate one line that works so-so and replace it with a line on the other side of the house from the same property with one that we think would work better, with the outfall being the same to the bog area.
And this, I think I read here somewhere, that this would catch some more water off the street that runs down this person's driveway now or something.
That's right, yeah,
think
that's
I read
right.
that here
And
somewhere.
an alternative would be to go down onto another neighbor's property who would rather not see it. So we're thinking we can sort of solve two problems with this one approach, and allow the parking lot to be created. We're thinking now next spring, because we're kind of running out of time. The Public Works Department could commit about 3 days to this and get its part done, according to Jeff Hall, and that's with use of our equipment and manpower. And we would swap some gravel for some fuel, so that there's no net cost to the town, but we're helping and trying to save the taxpayers some money on the construction of the parking facility. The putting in this work under the road requires a bigger machine than we have to do quickly enough, so we'd leave that for the school to contract, but we would do some dozer work and some trucking and so forth on the school side of the street to help in that way. That is now, because of the need to be putting up our sand pile and the school's responsibilities, the things that they're trying to deal with, that we think now that would be better to try and do this in the spring than to try and squeeze it in this fall. For one thing, this easement is not in place, and it takes a while for documents to be created and signed and authorized and talked around and made official before you start digging things up. So that is Gary Smith's recommendation, and we happen to feel that that would be a better timetable for us as well.
I'd make a motion that we authorize Peter to proceed with getting this easement for this drainage and working with the school on constructing the parking lot when the time comes.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
We need a 5 participation in the PACE program.
Yep, we've discussed this before, but we have occasional inquiries from members of the public. This PACE, which stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, is a loan program that people can take out to do energy improvements on their homes. It was a program that began, I think, in 2009 as partly to get people's homes tightened up, and partly to help bring the country out of the recession that we were facing at that time. It was promoted, advertised on TV, and there have been some inquiries over the years. I think we probably hear from people several times a year about this program. In order for Oakland residents to participate in the program, there is an ordinance that I included in your packet that the town has to pass. There is a contract that we have to sign that commits us to certain activities, educating, forming a committee, promoting the program. I will tell you that 2 years ago I checked to see whether this program did anything that people couldn't do privately, and I found private interest rates lower than this public program. I checked with that recently and found that that is still the case. I think you can argue this either way. You can say it may help some people that currently don't get help. You can say it's another government program and go off in that line of reasoning. So it's before you for further consideration. I'd rather answer questions than get too opinionated in my comments.
Peter, when I was reading this, somewhere here was the parts that, what do you have to do if we was in this program? What does the town office here have to do to facilitate this? And somewhere here there were some things that it sounded like we might have to do.
Well, the name of the program is the Property Assessed Clean Energy, what's the E? Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. So that if people don't pay their loans in a timely fashion, a lien is created. The lien goes on the property so that whoever's getting the benefit of the energy improvements winds up with the responsibility for the improvement. When I talked with Kathy Gagan about this a couple of years ago, she had concerns that following up on those liens would create another level of responsibility that we don't currently have. You asked about the town's responsibility. There is in the language this idea of creating a committee to talk this up. Since we talked about it 2 years ago, I sent an email inquiry out because we had provided to us a list of all the towns that joined, and there's 160. The number has increased since I looked at this. There's 160, I think, towns in Maine that have signed up for this program. So I put an inquiry out on the town manager's listserv to see, before we jump into it or don't, what is the experience on this? And I got back 10 or a dozen replies, and they all said, well, we passed the ordinance, and that's the last we ever heard of it. There was not much follow-up, apparently. Michelle Beal, the Ellsworth city manager, did tell me that she knew of 2 loans and that did help 2 citizens in Ellsworth, and that was with, I think the loan amounts can be up to like $15,000. That was with significant projects. There were also some energy assistance matters of a smaller sort that many more people in Ellsworth had availed themselves of. But whether or not this is something that is useful to enough people to make this something that the town should jump into is the question you're being asked to address.
Yeah, I guess it's on page 4 of the ordinance where it says the municipality will, and there's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, that all things that the municipality has to do. And it looked
Quite extensive.
like it might be quite a lot of things to do.
It's kind of an odd program in the sense that it's a federal program that creates local responsibilities. And I know it's geared to try and helping people that might not get help otherwise. But when I learned that the bank could come up with a more than competitive interest rate, it seemed you had to ask, well, what is the real advantage here that people can't get elsewhere? And this is on the agenda because we had a recent inquiry from someone who was asking about the program and how come Oakland wasn't signed up for it, and Oakland's name does not appear on the list of 100 and some odd communities that have signed up for it.
And this, you've included that in our thing here. Is this interest rate that's quoted here, is that realistic? The 10.99 compared to 4.99, do you think that's a realistic interest rate?
Lead me back to
It was on the email, an email that was sent to Jan, and you included it in here about the lady that was
Well, I'm sure
inquiring
that
about.
person was searching for, and that's what that was from the lady that was interested, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's what she found. And so I thought, well, maybe I better look and see what else might be available. So I made my inquiry and found that, if you look around, poke around, I'm sure that is what she learned.
Yeah,
But I think if you looked in other
There are
places, you
cheaper
could
ones,
probably
yeah.
find other sources. But that's something that's harder for some people and easier for others, so.
Don.
Not knowing enough about some of the details and knowing how efficiency Maine works in some places, I guess I'm not too eager to jump into this unless somebody can show us from other towns how it's been a real plus for them and people that utilize it. Sometimes the efficiency Maine model is you have a major energy, or part of the requirement is you have a major energy audit. And I think they cost $500 to do that. And probably that's part of the money you can borrow, but you have to do that before you can do many of the projects. And we had one done, and we had to do it to be part of this program. And I think the people who did those audits got paid very well.